Welcome back, everybody, to another I'm Glad I'm Not in Those Young Bucks Shoes episode of Lockdown 23 and 1. Those intros get me sometimes, can't hold back the giggles. But today we're jumping back into a Michigan courtroom to witness some teens get sentenced for murder. I know, unbelievable, right? So young. And I'll be giving y'all a quick rundown on the situation before we get into the courtroom. But first, as always, if you're new and enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you need to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave. And check out my playlist with many more exhilarating episodes for you to start watching today. Traveling down to Flint, Michigan, two teens are accused of killing their roommate during a robbery. Court records show 19-year-old Jacob Blain and 18-year-old Willow Reynolds are facing 4 charges for the death of 44-year-old Adam Reynolds at the residence in the 1100 block of Osceola Avenue.
It's kind of hard right now to talk about it without crying because it's like when after you lived next door to somebody like that, he have a sense of humor, like he's a nice man. Like, it really kind of make you feel sad after y'all done grew a bond. Like, that was my homie. Like, he was more than just a neighbor.
Both teenage suspects were charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree premeditated murder, felony murder, armed robbery, and attempted carjacking. Just being found guilty for one of any of those can send you to Smokeville for decades. But Blain and Willow Reynolds face up to life in prison with no chance of parole if they're convicted of the murder charges. The prosecutor's office say that Blain and Willow Reynolds lived at the residence with Adam Reynolds. They became upset when Adam Reynolds requested a meeting about house rules. They're accused of spraying mace at the victim, stabbing him, and hitting him in the head with a shovel several times. Investigators found him dead in the residence on May 2nd.
He deserved justice, and whatever they get, they deserve it. The way they did that, man, it's like some stuff that you would have seen in a movie.
And now it's time to find out just how much justice is going to be coming their way.
Mr. Flint.
Thank you, Your Honor. After consultation with the victim's family, a review of the pre-sentence investigation reports, as well as the sentencing guidelines, the people are requesting the court impose the maximum possible sentence within those guidelines, which would be 375 months on minimum for both defendants. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, allocution on behalf of your client.
Thank you. What occurs in these courtrooms is with the lives of both my clients, the co-defendant, and the families. We see this come through quite often, and it's very sad. It's become quite often. It's not lost on Mr. Blain. We discussed it. As you read in the report, page 1 in the evaluation is
Extremely hard to understand
this.
this.
Mr. Blain is one of those with some problems growing up. He never graduated high school. And he kind of was one of those kind of slipping through the cracks. And it's not a position to blame the government or the schools or the family. It's kind of a combination of all. We're placed in a position where wrong things happen. Now, this is an extreme wrong thing. That's not lost on anyone. But I think, as it says, he shows remorse for what occurred. And so that's one of the things that we were working with when we discussed all of this with the court. He is in programs in the Kansas County Jail. As I mentioned, he's showing remorse. He's trying to get things so that when there is an outdate, that he will be a better part of society than he was as a young man. We would ask the court to go along with the agreement that we have to take care of the minimum and to this go on everybody.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blain, anything you'd like to say, sir, before I decide the sentence in your case?
There is no excuse. This man did not deserve to have his life ended. And I want to apologize.
Okay, I respect that. Mr. Finney's allocution on behalf of your client.
Thank you, Judge. I kind of want to echo what Mr. Clark said, Your Honor. We see these type of incidents far too often. It is a tragedy. This is something that should have and could have been avoided. I will tell the court that in getting to know my client from the very beginning here, she had told me what she took a responsibility for this very dark and difficult act, and expressed remorse from pretty much day one, Your Honor. While Max has had some issues growing up, dealing with substance abuse, mental health abuse, mental health treatment, and not pursuing those treatments, I think led to a culmination of this tragic night, which causes us to really think about how important getting help is in life, not just for Max, but for anybody.
Now look, at first I thought that was a prosecutor speaking, but that's actually the other defendant's attorney. And this is a prime example of killing two birds with one stone. I would not want to go to sentencing with my Cody, because everybody knows that means we're both getting smoked. We're not both going free.
We believe, or I believe, Your Honor, that the cause agreement that was struck with the court would be an appropriate resolution to this matter. I know this is something that Max thinks about every single day and will continue to think about every single day. And it is my true and sincere hope that the family can find peace moving forward from today, and that Max can as well, and also find good avenues to get treatment while incarcerated, and hopefully when Max has a chance at parole, will be able to become a better and more productive member of society. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Ms. Reynolds, anything you would like to say before we decide the sentence in your case?
I would like to apologize to the family, and I understand what I did was awful, and I take full responsibility for it. And I'm trying to make myself a better person.
All right. Listen carefully to
That wasn't
both parties. I read
authentic.
the reports. Listen to the family members
Lousy.
of Mr. Reynolds that spoke here today on his behalf. And I would say, first of all, that it sounds like we could all use a Mr. Reynolds in our life.
Yep.
To do all those things that his family described that he did, not only for himself, but for the people in his family, but people that he was trying to help out. And from reading this report, it seems like Mr. Blain and Ms. Reynolds were people like that Mr. Adam Reynolds took a chance on and took the opportunity to try to help out, and it resulted in his death. And that perhaps is the most tragic part of this story, is that the concept of putting yourself out there and helping people, it should result in good things coming your way and good things happening to you. It should never result in a violent death, which is how it resulted in this particular case. So, from that perspective, this is certainly not just a tragedy because Mr. Reynolds died as a result of violent death, but it's a tragedy because that idea that he seemed to live for, based upon what his family said here today, is in jeopardy. Because it's very easy to say, well, he should have been more guarded. He should have closed himself off to people. And that's not the lesson we want to teach people. That's not what we want to have happen. We want people like Mr. Reynolds to give a helping hand. But we never want that helping hand to be extended and then what happened to him occur again.
Despicable to do someone dirty that's helping you. Trust me, I've been put into plenty of situations just like this. This is why I don't deal with people.
It's very rare to have 19-year-old defendants stand in front of the court on homicide charges with no prior felonies and no misdemeanors or minimal misdemeanor involvement. It's an unusual set of circumstances with these age of these individuals, their lack of prior criminal history, and the extreme violent nature of these acts. That is just particularly concerning to the court. The extent of the violence that Mr. Reynolds was subjected to by stabbing multiple times, use of a garden implement, and then left for dead when they tried to steal his car and went to the McDonald's. And ultimately, when confronted by police, were taken to the hospital for treatment. So, it's a very difficult case to decide the sentencing on. I was here at the courthouse yesterday at about noon, reading these reports and taking a few moments to give the potential sentence some thought. And I struggled, quite frankly, with these two cases in particular, but not only these two cases, but in some other cases that involve sentence agreements, because the agreement is for something less than what is potentially the maximum sentence.
I hate to stop it, Your Honor, but let's break down a couple things. Prosecution's asking for max, which is 375 months. I think that's like 31 years. I don't think I actually calculated in my calculator. But that's not enough if you're to ask me, and I feel like the judge is thinking the same way. They don't deserve to be out in the streets ever again.
And anytime that there is an agreement made in a case, a negotiated resolution or a sentence agreement, the result of that is that neither party gets what they want. And that's how every negotiation occurs, whether it's in the employment context, the business context, buying a car, purchasing any other object or item. There's a negotiation that occurs, and either party generally should walk away with everything that they want, because if they do, that's not really a negotiation. So in this particular instance, I have to decide whether or not the negotiated number with regard to the cop's sentence is appropriate or not. And I will say that for purposes of the record and the other guidelines, it's not appropriate for what you two did.
Oh, man.
I don't honestly know if there is a number that's enough time for what you two did
Nope.
to this gentleman. Mr. Blain, look at me when I'm talking to you,
Oh, man. He's gonna get smoked.
Okay, you spent the entire sentencing staring over there in this corner. When those three women were up here talking, you were looking over here in the corner. I know you apologize, but they deserve at least to be looked at in the eye for what you did.
That's right. Scumbag ass.
I was saying, I don't think there is a number, quite frankly, that is high enough for the evil that you subjected this gentleman to.
Yup. Evil.
The scariest part of this is that nobody could see this coming. No felonies, 2 minor misdemeanors. Generally, this type of violence has some indicators. And neither one of you had the greatest childhood. Okay? I would say probably 90% of the people that come here for sentencing did not have the greatest situation growing up. But it doesn't result in what you two did. So, quite frankly, I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to not feel very good about this. And I'm probably not going to feel very good about it for a long time.
Oh no, he's going
But
with
the
it.
other side of the equation is this, that I think it's important to bring some finality to these events. And I will give both defendants credit for taking responsibility for their part in these violent crimes. That's about the best thing and only good thing I can say about either defendant today, is that you took some responsibility and the family didn't have to sit and watch a trial and see pictures of their loved one depicted up here on a big screen in a courtroom in the worst way possible, both from a crime scene and from an autopsy, and see that violence depicted here in a courtroom. So that's about the only good thing I can say with regard to each one of these defendants. So I'm going to fashion a sentence that is not appropriate and not adequate for the violence that was inflicted.
Oh,
But it is a result of a negotiation that Obviously, something has to be given up to obtain that result. And I think under these circumstances, while I am not happy and not comfortable with it, I'm going to follow the agreement that I made. I'm going to sentence them accordingly. But I'll note for the record that I hope when your minimum term at the Department of Correction is reached, that the parole folks take a long, careful, hard look at both of you to determine whether it is safe to release you back into society. Because I quite frankly do not know if that point in time will ever come. So the sentencing is as follows with regard to Mr. Blain. On count 1, murder in the second degree, he's sentenced to a minimum term of 20 years, a maximum term of 100 years. He has credit for 291 days that he has served. On count 3, armed robbery, he's sentenced to a minimum term of 20 years, a maximum term of 100 years, credit for 291 days that he has served. And on count 4, unlawfully driving away of an automobile attempt, he's sentenced to 291 days, credit for 291 days. He's responsible financially for the crime victims' rights fee and state minimum cost 130 and 204. And he has a joint and several restitution obligations for crime victim services for $9,000.
Lighten up on the smoke, Bobby. Oh, man.
With regard to Ms. Reynolds, the sentence is as follows. On count 1, she's sentenced to a minimum term of 20 years, a maximum term of 100, credit for 291 days that she has served. On count 3, armed robbery, the minimum term is 20 years, the maximum is 100 years, credit for 291 days that she has served. Count 4, unlawfully driving away of an automobile attempt, she's sentenced to 291 days, credit for 291 days. She's also responsible for the crime victims' rights fee, state minimum cost 130, 204, and a joint and several restitution obligation to crime victim services for $9,136.79.
There's not one drop of remorse in either of their eyes. Their apologies were bland and pitiful. But justice in my book was definitely not served. Nope, life without parole or the death sentence would have been perfectly appropriate. But who knows, maybe the victim's family, they agreed upon all this. You heard like what the judge said. Maybe they didn't want to see all those pictures and images and have to testify. Or whatever the case is, man. It could be very traumatizing, reliving all that in high detail. But me, if it happened to one of my family members, I'm going through it because I want them to get the max. No plea deals whatsoever, Your Honor. I want to see the thickest cloud of smoke you can deliver. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know, have I been getting a little smoke crazy on these murderers? Maybe it's because Bobby don't know how to turn it off. I'm starting to hallucinate over here. Come on! But did they get enough time? What do you think? Should they have gotten life in prison? Or death, possibly? Let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear y'all's input. But stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. I do got plenty more content coming your way. I know I need to tap into that little island boy situation. I want to react to one of his arrest altercations, body cam footage. It's pretty priceless and comical, to be honest. Not to mention much more, so be on the lookout for all that. And the only way to do that is by hitting that notification bell, setting it to all. In the meantime, though, as always, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free.